Hi everyone, it's Evelyn. And the year that I decided that I was actually going to take the plunge and start becoming an urban flower farmer on my tiny city lot, I spent the winter doing a little bit of research as to how to approach that. And one of the things I read or heard or watched, I can't remember where I saw it, was that if you're going to do a roadside flower wagon, which is the route I had decided to take, the best form of advertising you can do is to grow your flowers where they can be seen from the road. Makes perfect sense. And because our backyard was a full food garden at that time, I decided, okay, that gives me a place to grow the flowers. I'll grow them in our front garden, which up until that point had been mostly grass. And so I spent a good part of that late winter and early spring digging the flower beds. Once the flower beds were dug, and the dahlias, because that's what I only grew for the first few years, were all planted and growing, I then had to come up with a way to sell my dahlias. Now you've all seen my 3.0 version, but that's not the first version I did. I started off with just a standard flower wagon that I bought on sale at Canadian Tire, so I think it cost me something like $72 on sale, really good price. I got six flower buckets that we got from our local garden center for free from the garden center. I took one of the umbrellas off of our deck and attached it to the wagon for shade, and that's how I sold single dahlias. That worked for a very short time until we got into the fall and it got a little bit windier, and then my umbrella kept tipping over all the time. So we had to scramble and come up with a 2.0, which is this one. It doesn't look that great, but it was like a scramble scrap material put it together because the umbrella was no longer working once it started to get windy. But that still worked really well. And what we did then was, over the course of that winter, come up with our 3.0 model, which you've all seen. Now, when I started the 3.0 model, we were still just selling single stem dahlias inside pop cans or little milk containers inside the flower buckets. The thing about version 3.0, which as you can see here again, is it's a huge upgrade from how I was selling them before, the flowers. So it had, we designed a three-step that can be detachable or attached to the side of the flower wagon for plant pots for what I'm selling, basically at that time, considering selling the daffodils and the tulips. It had a higher height to it so that when people reached in, they weren't going to hit their head on anything because the other ones was lower and it was too low to actually reach in. It has a high shelf on it, which is perfect for signage. And it has a proper roof on it with a slope so that when the rain comes down and hits the roof, the metal roof, the slope of it will send the rain down to the back of the flower wagon and away from the heads of people who are reaching in there. We also did solid shade cloth on three sides. Now, since then, we've had to actually slice the shade cloth because even then, when it gets really windy, now we're getting closer to October when it starts to get really windy, it's tipped that flower wagon over a few times because of the resistance. So by slicing the shade cloth in a few places, wind is able to pass through and not tip our flower wagon over. It's amazing you can tip that over. It takes like 3 people to lift it up. Now that I had a proper place for signage that wasn't going to get ruined, I decided that my next focus for advertising, 1 was planting the flowers in the front garden, 2 was creating this beautiful flower wagon, which is in its own way beautiful enough that with the flowers in it, it's just such a nice presentation on the road that in itself causes more people to stop. The third thing to do was to develop proper signage for the flower wagon, and I decided to use the KISS method. Following the concept of keep it simple, stupid, which I love because I say that in my head all the time. Every time I'm starting something new, it pops into my head. Keep it simple, stupid. That says so much about how we need to create a space or an area for people to buy their flowers that isn't complicated, that makes it easy for them to understand and follow, especially because my flower wagon is self-serve. So the first thing I did was create a logo. And my logo, I kept it simple. I kept it bright. I kept it easy, very easily recognizable from a distance. Let's put that closer. And it keeps the standard logo that I use for my interior design business, which is on my sign out front of our property. It keeps it all interconnected. I'm not trying to create a whole pile of different looks for a whole pile of different things. This is clearly not my interior design business. And that logo is recognizable from a huge distance, whether you see the Evelyn M on it or not. But it keeps it simple. The next thing, and by the way, that's part of my business card, which I won't show you because there's information on there that I don't want you to see. And I don't have the business card out at the Roadside Flower Wagon because it has my address on it, and clearly if you're there, you know where I am. It has my phone number on it, but my sign actually has my phone number on it too. So when people have phoned me, they've just looked up at the sign, and the sign also has my website on it. The next thing that I needed to do was create signage for what I was selling. And what I did was I kept the signage in a format that I could easily change out depending on what I was selling. So for example, when I sell my daffodils and tulips, and this year hyacinths as well, I do the sign, here's my logo, here's what I'm selling on this side and the price, it's in 1 gallon pots, and pictures of the various different, in this case tulips, this is last year's sign, with their photos so that they can see what they look like when they're in bloom, in case there's any pots up there where they're not in bloom, and the name of the tulip. And this can easily be swapped out for daffodils with the pictures of the daffodils, or hyacinths, etc., or all three on the same sheet. And I always put organically grown because everything is grown organically. In fact, I do a closed loop system. The only thing I bring into our garden for fertilizing that isn't from our actual garden is seaweed from when I go to the beach with the dogs. So I just thought I'd put a little picture up here of Leela and Zena down at the beach because you haven't seen them for a while because I don't have them in my office, so the door's shut and they can't get in here. And yeah, they have fun down there. But I take the dogs to the beach every 3 days. And while I'm down there, I fill up a bag of seaweed and I bring it home, and it gets incorporated into the soil matter along with our, like I'll dig a hole and I'll put 3 days worth of our kitchen scraps at the bottom of the hole. I'll then cover that with a layer of weeds, and then I'll cover that with a bag of the seaweed, and then cover that with the soil that I had taken out of the hole. And I work my way through beds that way through the winter. And that's how I keep the soil health in my garden good. I just slowly work my way through all the beds that way. I may not get through them all in 1 year, one season of winter, but by the time the next winter rolls around, usually I have managed to get through all the beds. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're talking about advertising. So this is how I do the marketing of my tulips at the stand and my daffodils. And then, like last year, I started selling Albanana English lavender. And because it's just one plant, it's the same layout, as you can see. I'll put them side by side. It's got the logo. It's got the name of what it is. It's got the picture, although in this case, because it's just one, it's off to the side. And then I put a bigger description of what the Albanana lavenders are. And then because they're just rootings from the previous year and quite small, they're just, what were they, $5 each. And then again, organically grown. For inside the flower wagon, I kind of do the same thing. I keep it simple. I have the logo. Instead of putting the name of what it is, because now we're talking about bouquets and flowers, which can change by the day, I just tell them about my YouTube channel. And then I have the price of flower bouquets. I say that flower arrangements are individually priced, and that pop can flowers, because I sell them individually in pop cans, are $4 each or 3 for $10. People do love the pop cans because they sit in the drink container of their car, so it makes them easy to take 1 to 3 stems, or well, quite often they'll buy more than 1 pop can's worth, but they'll take it out of the other pop cans and put it into the one so that they can get it into their drink containers. And they love that because the flowers stay in water and it's an easy place to hold them. They don't have to worry about the water container tipping over. So that's how I create the signage. And then what I have been doing is putting them in these plexiglass stands, pre-drill a couple holes in the base, and then screw this down into that top shelf of the flower wagon. And then, of course, as you can see here, the sign goes in there. I may change that this year a little bit because, again, with windage, and we can get quite windy when the windy season starts. What's been happening, you see, this is where it was screwed down here and here, and it just has literally broken right off. Just broken right off. So I went through quite a few of those in the windy season, and that's expensive. So I think we're going to switch to laminating, and then having them on a block of wood that gets screwed down on there, like a piece of plywood that's the size of the 8.5 by 11 inch sign, which I do on my own printer right over here. And so that if it gets pulled off and blown off, a scrap piece of wood does not cost as much as one of those plexiglass stands. But that's something I still have to figure out for this year, and I haven't gotten around to that because we're not even close to having the flower wagon up on the road. So that type of signage has worked out really well, both for me, because it's really simple for me to produce, and for the customer, because it's really simple for them to look at. They see the logo, they see what it is, they see the picture of what it looks like, and they see the description, and they see the price. And that's all they need to know. If they need to know more, my phone number is over there on my sign. And the next thing that I think is really, really important for marketing is take opportunities when they arrive. For example, look at this note that I found in my cash box on my flower wagon a couple of years ago. Now, I'm a very tiny urban flower farmer, so when I saw that note, it kind of made me nervous and a little bit scared because A, I didn't know if I could commit to any flowers for her, and B, I didn't even know if I had the kind of flowers that she wanted. But being scared and nervous is no reason not to take advantage of a situation when it falls in your lap. So I did phone her and we chatted, and what we figured out is that she wasn't going to be able to order in advance for me because I simply didn't know how much. I wouldn't be able to commit to a large amount of anything because I'm not a very large farmer. I have some stuff of everything, not even of everything. So she continued to make her orders for the weddings that she did from her usual place that she purchased them. But if she needed anything extra on short notice, or if her supplier shorted her on anything, she would text me and ask me what I had available, tell me what the color scheme was. I would email her back images of the flowers that I had that fit in with that. And she would come by, let's say the wedding was on Saturday, she would come by on Thursday, later in the afternoon, and go through the garden's flower beds with me. And I would cut what she wanted, and then we'd figure out the price. Now, I also didn't know the wholesale prices, and I could find nothing online for my location to give me wholesale prices. It's surprisingly private online in my area as to what wholesale prices of flowers are. So I simply told her, I don't know what the wholesale prices are, and I trust you. You tell me what you pay for this. And I did trust her, because I had a kind of an idea just from following some YouTube channels what wholesale prices were. So when she told me the prices, they fit in with my idea. So I just let her dictate what she was going to pay me. If she came in a little bit under what she was paying, I honestly don't care. To me, it was a really, really easy way to move flowers wholesale, because I didn't even have to deliver them to her. She came to my garden, looked at what I had, chose what she wanted. I followed along with a bucket and scissors and cut as she basically said, how about this, how about this, how about this? And that worked out really, really well. This is one of the wedding bouquets that she did with my dahlias. Now, here's an interesting fact. If you think that you can't supply florists, wedding florists especially, because you don't grow a lot of whites or pales, none of her weddings were whites and pales, at least none of the ones she contacted me about. They were like golden burgundy. They were like, she had color schemes for them all, and none of them involved, I don't think I sold a single white flower to her. Everything I sold to her was gold, burgundy, red, purple, all these colors that you would not think would be used for bouquets. But that is, in fact, as you can see by the bouquet, the colors that she was using for at least the weddings that she contacted me about. Now, because I couldn't supply her with a lot, and because I had increased my amount of flowers that I had been growing, and because I wanted to really, not everybody drives down my road. It's a very busy road, but there are at least 2 other main arteries into town besides the one I live on. And I wanted people who drove down those roads to possibly find out about my flower wagon. So I decided that I was going to go and do the farmer's market, and that we're talking about 2022. And so I did the farmer's market for 1.5 years. I had fun doing it. I had people loved my bouquets. It was just a really, really enjoyable experience. But I stopped doing it halfway through last season. I think July 15th-ish was about my last farmer's market for several reasons. One, it was a really, really hot year last year, and I can't handle being in the heat all day like that. The flowers don't particularly like it either. My flower wagon was doing much better. The sales had really, really started to pick up at it, and it was becoming a scramble having enough flowers for my flower wagon, the florist, and the farmer's market. And honestly, if I didn't have my own art products as well to sell, I had my art cards, my art magnets, art prints. If I didn't have those, it really wouldn't have been worth going to the farmer's market for, just because some days I only had 4 bouquets. Some Sundays I only had 4 bouquets that I could take with me there because I sold everything else. That's all I could come up with. So I decided to stop doing the farmer's market. But while I was there, anytime somebody engaged me about anything, because even if they were buying an art card, they would still reference the flowers, and I would immediately say, oh, do you know the flower wagon up on my street? And if they did, I'd say, well, that's me. That's my flower wagon. Or if they didn't know it, I'd say, yeah, it's located near where the Campbell River Museum is, and blah, blah, blah. And I would let everybody and anybody know where my flower wagon was. And I think that's one of the reasons why my sales started to really pick up, because while the farmer's market here, where I live, is on Sundays, that's not really the best day of the week to be buying flowers. Most people, in fact, at my flower wagon, that's the worst day of the week for selling flowers, because most people buy them starting mid to late and going into late week, usually with Saturday being the last big day, and then Sunday and Monday being the slowest days. So once they know about the flower wagon, they don't have to wait for the farmer's market to buy a bouquet on Sunday. They can just come by the flower wagon any day of the week to pick up a bouquet or a pop can full of flowers or a flower arrangement or whatever. And I keep my flower wagon open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. I make enough flowers, arrangements, etc. to get through the day, but I don't put them all out at the wagon. I have a lot of them in the shade. I don't have a cooler, so I just have them in a cooler spot. And as a bouquet sells, I usually only put up 1 or 2 bouquets depending time of year. And as one sells, we'll then bring the next bouquet out so that they're not constantly sitting in the blazing heat from morning until night. Almost none of them will stay in the blazing heat from morning until night because it'll be sold and then replaced. So that was it for the farmer's market. I stopped doing that. So that form of marketing my flower wagon is no longer happening. Another thing that I do to really promote where my flower wagon and my face attached to it and my sunny disposition, because you know I'm just such a cheerful person. I get a lot of cash in my honor box. I also got a lot of cash at the farmer's market. And I will take that cash, and wherever I go shopping, I will say to the cashier, do you mind if I use up some of my cash? It's just that I get so much of it in my cash box at my flower wagon. And as soon as I say that, either the cashier or somebody in the line will say, oh, are you the flower wagon on such and such a street? Or are you the dahlia lady with all the dahlias in her front garden? And it starts a conversation. Sometimes a really long conversation amongst the people in the line and the cashier. And I literally just want to leave, but I will stay and I will engage as long as I need to, because that is one of the best ways to market yourself. You, your face, who you are, so that when people drive by the flower wagon, they remember the person and the face that's attached to it. And that, above all else, can make them stop if otherwise they didn't want to. Unless, of course, you're grouchy, in which case I'll just drive right by. So never go out when you're grouchy. So those are the forms of advertising that I've been doing, and those are the ways of selling that I've been doing. But unfortunately, this past fall, the florist that I was selling to, was it in the fall? No, it was in the early winter. The florist that I was selling to contacted me and let me know that she was actually going to Europe for 2024. So she wouldn't be buying any flowers for me, which was really, really disappointing because I really enjoyed the relationship that we had with the way I sold her flowers. It was just so easy. And it was really easy because that's the way we made it. Both she and I were into a win-win situation, which made it very, very comfortable for both of us. So after that, in December, I thought, you know, I'm going to see if there's another event florist in our city that might like to buy from me. So what I did is I just went and Googled all the local florists in our area. And if they had websites, I went onto their websites. And I looked for one that I thought might be the best fit for me. And I contacted her. I'm just going to go get my computer and I'm going to go over the points of our contact back and forth just to give you some ideas, if you'd like to do this, how to go about it. Just one sec. Okay, got my computer in front of me. And I'm just going to quickly read a little bit of the back and forth that we did, because we did have a phone call in there, but we did a lot of emailing back and forth. So the way I contacted her was I emailed her through her website and I said, "Hi R, I have a very small flower farm surrounding my home on A Street in Campbell River. I have a flower wagon out front for the past 5 years on the X block of my street, just past the museum or swimming pool as you head into town. You may know the flower wagon. Many people think of me as the dahlia lady, as my front yard is where I grow 150 dahlias. I thought that since you too are in Campbell River, we might be able to work something out that benefits both of us based on what I grow and what you need for this upcoming 2024 season. This, of course, would require a longer conversation. Feel free to email or phone me." So then, I did that in the week between Christmas and New Year's, not expecting to get a reply right away and not wanting to contact her right away because I don't want to come across as pushy. I want her to think of me as an easy situation. So about the end of the first week in January, she got back to me and said, "Thank you so much for reaching out. I hope you had a nice holiday season and Happy New Year. I live just up from you." Well, that's pretty handy. "And drive past your beautiful cart every day on my way to work and have admired your garden every time. I'd love to chat more about what you grow and the possibility of wholesale bulk orders sometime. Does Thursday afternoon around 4:30 work for you for a phone call?" Which of course I responded it would, and we did have a really beautiful phone conversation where we discussed a lot of things. Now I did say to her, because I've already worked with a florist, that I realize I'm quite small, and so the chances of me being able to supply her everything she needs are pretty non-existent, and that she needs to plan for her weddings or whatever other event she puts on well in advance. So I'm not expecting to be a major supplier of hers, and more like something that could fill in if she's short on something. But through talking with her, one of the things that we figured out that would really, really work is she had literally just for 2024 taken elopements off of her website. Because elopements are usually last minute, they require very few flowers because there's not going to be very many people there, if any, you know, like just the witnesses, etc. And it's not worth her while. She buys only local flowers, but down island from me, there are larger flower farms. So she can go down island, like about an hour south of me, and buy all the flowers that she needs for her wedding events. But to do an elopement, it's not worth her while to drive an hour down island and then an hour back. So that's why she had decided to take elopements off of her website. But after our conversation, she realized she can put them back on, because if somebody wants flowers for an elopement, she can just simply contact me, who lives just a few blocks away from her, buy what she needs from me. She's not going to guarantee them any specific kind of flower. Just buy flowers, what's available, and then she can take that back on as one of the products that she offers as an event florist. So that was a really, really good conversation. And that only happened because I was clearly open to allowing my little tiny farm to work with whatever it was she needed. And so then, through those conversations, and knowing that she might still like to buy flowers from me for the bigger events, she actually sent me a list of some of her upcoming weddings, and this is what she sent me. She said, on this date, the wedding will be all pastels, a spring explosion. On this date, it will be white, green, subtle yellow flower centers. The next one is all white. Then comes sunset disco, think vibrant pinks, oranges, golden yellows, peaches, perfect for dahlias. Then comes all shades of pink, ranging from white to purple. Then comes greenery and deep plummery, grape purple. Then comes fall jewel tones, rich and autumnal. And another one is classic autumn rusty tones. So what we arranged that I would do is with this list, and she will add to it as more weddings get booked in, I can, a week before the wedding, let her know what I will have available that fits in with those color schemes. Now, what's really important about this is that only one of them was an all white, and only one of them was white and green, and only one of them was pastel. All the others took in different shades of other colors. So I wanted to read that to you so you realize that wedding florists, at least where I live, it's not all about white and pastels. Far from it. The younger people are not into white and pastel. They're into color. So anyway, I wanted to read that to you. Now, that's where I'm at as far as how I'm marking my flower wagon to date. More or less, one of the things that I may do for this summer again is attach myself to the farmer's market, but not go to it, because that's very time consuming and I'm not going to have the flowers for it. But I did develop relationships with some of the farm vendors down there, and one in particular who has bought flowers for me, not at the farmer's market, and whom I have bought actually fall raspberries from her, and I'm on her list for asparagus in the spring. So I may approach her and say, would you like to have a bouquet at the farmer's market every week, every Sunday, with my business cards beside them, which give my address, etc., that people can pick up. She knows, her and her husband know where I live, because, you know, I've done some bouquets for them, and I've bought autumn raspberries from them, so they know exactly where I live. So if somebody needs directions, they'll be able to give it. And then, of course, they have a bouquet that they can take home with them and enjoy for as long as it lasts. So that is another way of marketing at a farmer's market that doesn't actually involve going to the farmer's market. And of course, the farm vendors get a lot of people going there, especially people who sell fruit and asparagus. Asparagus sells like crazy. You'll notice I haven't mentioned social media. I don't do social media. It takes too much time. I had a Facebook page for my interior design business, of which I've really cut back the amount of time I do interior design now. And when I was doing it 6 days a week, and I was also doing my Facebook page for it, I found it took an incredible amount of time to have my Facebook page interesting enough for people to go on it on a regular basis. And still, I found that really customers weren't interested in going on my Facebook page. They were just interested in me coming and helping them, because I mostly worked just from repeat customers or referrals from customers that I worked from before. So they didn't really use my Facebook page at all. So all that time that I was spending on it was just more for people who were friends. I don't know. To me, it just wasn't a good way of marketing my business. But it sure took a lot of time. So that's one thing that I learned is that marketing via social media, yeah, it may be free, but it is time consuming. And I think that there are better ways to spend my time than doing the social media pages. I mean, I'm doing YouTube now, and I don't think that my YouTube channel takes any more time than my Facebook page used to take. So that's kind of swapped itself out. And I like it that way. Now, if you're considering doing a farmer's market, I think when I did the farmer's market, it was great. I met a lot of people. It was a really, really good way to introduce yourself to the people of your city or town or country or whatever. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I had put quite a bit of time and effort into figuring out how I wanted my booth to look. So I actually did a video on it last year. So if you'd like to check out how I set up my farmer's market booth, check out this video over here. I think if you haven't done a farmer's market before, it could be helpful. And I know it was certainly people really did like my booth. So anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.